calling from a 702 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey
702.
Mike, it's Bro Flamingo. Hey Mike, it's
Hey,
Bro Flamingo from Las Vegas.
how you doing, bro, Flamingo? I have a bone to pick with you, my friend.
Listen, you already beat me to the punch. I got two things I want to talk about. Mike, I definitely apologize for not mentioning you. I completely forgot.
I'm very sensitive.
You done so much.
You diss me again. You forgot? I mean, I'm a sensitive guy,
No, no,
bro,
no, no. It
Flamingo.
was just, I was in the heat of the moment. I'm sorry. By the way, excellent, excellent takedown of Rahm Emanuel. Very informative. I really like that. It's probably my favorite Michael Thursday I've
Awesome.
heard.
Cool.
It's very good.
Yeah, I am.
And
But what do you have on your mind, though? What are you thinking?
okay, Mike. All right. I'm sure you heard because I know this. You know, you touch all around the politics, but I'm sure you heard about Donald Trump, and he basically said, "Hey, I'll take foreign intelligence
Yep.
for my against." You heard all that stuff.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
here's the problem. At this point, Nancy Pelosi is doing just basically political malpractice at this point.
Uh-huh.
He has to be impeached. There has to be some punishment on the table now. At this point, Mike, we've basically been in the trenches for a long time now. All we're getting is like lip service, a lot of lip service. We go, oh, he should be in prison, X, Y, and Z. We need punishment and
That is,
tangibles,
I
'cause
just
at
want to
this point,
say really quickly, bro, Flamingo. I'm glad you said that because I know, part of the reason I cover some of this stuff less is not because I think actually some of it is very important, but I actually think, in some of it, I think
right,
it gets overhyped and other parts of it are, the value of each of us are finding different things to cover and talk about so that more people are more informed about more things. But I just want to say,
right,
I think the idea that comment about he should be in jail, there are three ways in which that's a disaster. Because number one, I don't think, frankly, and this is where I will be like a squishy liberal. While Donald Trump, I'm sure, I mean, look, Donald Trump probably should have been in jail for years, right? I actually think that people
absolutely,
should be very wary of mindlessly aping when he says that. If you have any interest about preserving any of these so-called norms, and I'm going to say that things like not jailing political opponents is a hell of a lot more important than a quote-unquote norm. I
Lula
don't.
Livre.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Lula Livre. I don't care about norms. I do care about not jailing political opponents, frankly. So,
right.
okay, so that's one thing. Now, the second thing is if she's saying that from a substantive place, which she could very well be, then that
And we know she's not. It's
then
not good faith
well
at
then
all.
that's insane that she's not impeaching him because if you actually are saying other than some cheap talking point trick that a president should be in jail, then you have to impeach them immediately. And third,
Right.
one of the reasons that my position is, and I have not had a strong feeling about impeachment one way or another until Rashida Tlaib said, impeach the motherfucker, because I like that ethos, frankly. And I just think it's
Right.
like, do it or don't. And every day that they don't do it, they look weak. They're misreading history.
Yes.
And it's embarrassing that they come out and throw those little trinkets like, oh, he should be in jail, which is, by the way, a problematic thing to say in and of itself if you're not going to justify it, and ludicrous if you're not going to go for impeachment. So anyways, that's what I have to say about
Right.
that.
And Mike, I'll say this last thing. I'll jump. But the problem is, though, Mike, and you're absolutely right, by the way. But this is all across the board at this point now. For example, I'm talking about people like from Brett Kavanaugh to Brock Turner to the police to the Tangerine Chimp himself. When you don't punish these guys, this is what you get. We get a lot of fence sitting or whatever. Look, I get it. You know what I'm saying? In Mike, you've seen this political landscape. All the liberals supposed to be the adults in the room, whatever. Problem is, it's also political. You're supposed to punish your political enemies. This is what happens when you sit there and try to negotiate with thieves, thugs, and rapists, okay? Basically, at this point, Mike, you know what I'm saying? And we're seeing kind of a generational split here, in a schism in the party. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, people want material tangibles. People want material tangibles, punishment, and justice, okay? Because what we're seeing now, Mike, you know what I'm saying? We set the brown shirts, aka ICE, going after Latinos, okay?
Absolutely.
With the domestic police attacking black
Well, by the
people,
way,
you know
that's
what I'm saying?
another.
Also,
Well, that's
now,
another thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's another thing, frankly,
right.
that really, And this gets into the tension of the fight between supposedly left and liberals, though I have to say, I just don't accept. I think, especially if you watch his speech yesterday, Bernie's been very clear about these things. But that's another thing. Make your pick. Is Donald Trump this unprecedented, dangerous ogre, which in many ways he is, in other ways he's just simply the product of capitalism and all these other things, in my opinion. But if that is the case, then you can't treat him like you're in just some kind of normal tussle. And I think that, there's a certain part of the democratic and media establishment. Venezuela is an amazing example of that. To one hand say that this is a racist incompetent and then entertain the idea of supporting a regime change effort that he's in charge of. It's just so, even setting aside ideology, it's just so unbelievably incoherent. And it's going to be it's going to, and you're going to be rightfully pissed off by that. I mean, I agree with you.
Last thing, Mike, I'll jump because I know you got stuff to get to. I just really feel like at this point, Mike, after the comments yesterday, and there's a lot of jumping off points we can go off to abortion, all that stuff. But to me, that was the final straw. At this point, look, we are the future, okay? The baby boomers and all the Dixiecrats and Klansmen like Biden, soft Klansmen. I'm sorry, he's a soft Klansman, okay? But these guys, they got to be punished now or called to the carpet for their mistakes. At least Bill Clinton for his trash. Or he apologized for the Biden's crime, for the signing the crime.
He was able. He had a sense of how to. I agree with you. People need to be held accountable, and we need to fight. And I appreciate the call. Thanks, man. Have a good day. Appreciate it. All right, take care. Okay, is this the sound? This is apparently Donald Trump. To be honest with you, I don't. I mean, look, if this is how we want to play, okay. But it is another reaffirmation that to the extent that this guy has any conscious process about anything, that to the extent it's not all just, pure just nonsense and garbage running out of his stupid mouth. The only pattern to his behavior, there's a pattern of certainly bigotry, goes back to the Central Park Five, and then the other pattern is generating immunity for himself. And I do mean immunity. So, look, there was all this controversy about the last election, and I'm going to double down on, taking information from foreign sources. Now, let's just see what he has to say. The sound is off, guys. Do we need to reset this? Okay. Not sure what's going on there, guys. You got it? All right. If you have it now, we don't even need to reset it. All right. You ready? Go.
Your son, Don Jr., is up before the Senate Intelligence Committee today. And again, he was not charged with anything. In retrospect, though,
by the way, not only wasn't he charged, if you read it, with all of the horrible fake news, I mean, I was reading that my son was going to go to jail. This is a good young man, that he was going to go to jail. And then the report comes out, and they didn't even say, they hardly even talked about him.
Should he have gone to the FBI when he got that email?
Okay, let's put yourself in a position. You're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI?
Wait, his son is not a congressman, just to clarify.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't think coming from Russia, you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI.
Yo, see, that's the real, sometimes you got to do business with Sammy the Bull. I mean, you're building buildings. Things don't happen if there's a rat.
I don't think coming from Russia, you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. You throw somebody out of your office. You do whatever
Al
you do.
Gore got a stolen briefing book. He called the FBI.
Well, that's different. A stolen briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have
These are bleach bit emails.
These are bleach bit emails from a foreign intelligence service. That's not like notes from another campaign thing. I love how he basically he says the thing that's way less important than what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's the one that isn't important.
All he knows is he needs to make a distinction. It doesn't matter if that distinction actually helps him when you think about it.
Absolutely. It's
stolen
hilarious.
briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't
The
work.
FBI director says that's what should happen.
The FBI director is wrong.
Your
Whoa.
campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called
It's a win-win.
from a country, Norway, we
Pause
have
it.
information on
Norway ain't trying to help you get reelected, homie. Let's be very clear about that.
Yes, President Trump, we have compromise on Hillary.
Norway. We have information on your opponent.
Way.
Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
Do you want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI. If I thought there was something wrong. But when some
Which, I mean, if they were against us.
Right. Well, that's the marker I wanted to lay down because I get, less in a tizzy about these things, frankly, in a sense that, if no other campaign would ever handle things the way Trump does. But my point is that if information somehow filtered in a non-traditional way that benefited your preferred candidate, I'm sorry. We live in this world. I'm not sure it's the end of the world.
If Corbyn was helping Bernie somehow, I'd be like, good
Well,
job,
actually,
guys.
that was a major controversy when Bill Clinton was running for office. The major government, I don't remember specifically what it was, but I think they leaked things related to his draft resistance or draft dodging, which was supposed to help George H.W. Bush. I mean, even really relatively benign things like that are not unheard of. And of course, when, Ro Khanna, he hasn't introduced it again, but I remember, I think in 2017, he introduced a bill saying, hey, we should just make it illegal for the CIA to do anything that Russia is accused of doing. He didn't have many co-sponsors. So, let's be real and have like an adult conversation about this stuff. But the important thing here is that he's laying down and to me, this is as far as I'm concerned, this is the real marker of his lawlessness. Okay. Yes. Broadly and publicly saying I'll take information from everybody, yes, that's a problem. But the real problem is exactly what Matt just said, is that his metric would be if the same arrangement happened with any other campaign, he'd be calling for them to have their citizenship stripped and be sent to like the archipelago. So that's the point. Is it's another, double standard you're up against. And one of the ways of, having to deal with Trump is really dealing with somebody who does not even pretend to have a cursory respect for our institutions. I mean, he is just functionally lawless.
Interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI. If I thought there was something wrong. But when somebody comes up with Oppo research, right? They come up with Oppo research. Let's call the FBI. The FBI doesn't have enough agents to take care of it. But you go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
So
That's, by the way, I will say that is a pretty. The difference between Oppo research, which is hiring somebody to dig up information on an opponent, versus taking direct data from a foreign government, is a slightly different thing.
yeah, there's this weird thing where it's sort of like this stuff does interest me, especially like in the pre-Trump era. These sorts of stories were very interesting, right? Like the Nixon stuff about the Paris peace talks, like
Right.
actual, well, not actual. This is actual too, which is dumb. Also, but there's this weird thing where it's not a surprise that he would say everyone does it. But it's almost a relief that he's saying it out loud. Like at least we can use this as a way to have conversation. I almost think he brings it up because he thinks everyone is going to be so uncomfortable and will be afraid to actually talk about it.
Right.
But that's not our problem, really. Like this is basically just red meat for us.
It really opens up the door for, and it requires some subtlety of thinking, right? Like when he said the thing about, Putin, and he was like, what, you think we're so good or something, something to that effect of like, you're going to come moralize me about what Russia does? Like, are you kidding me? Like, you think we run like a daycare center? And, what was so revealing in the response, and the only smart response, one was there's definitely a huge part of his constituency that's represented in how the right conceives of itself now and fits with ICE and fits with lawlessness and fits with racism and all the rest of it, which was to basically say like, yeah, exactly. And we'll go and kill and murder whoever we want. And in fact, they have been. Civilian casualties have spiked. They're supporting a genocide in Yemen. But then the sort of establishmentarian, conventional liberal response was to get into West Wing mode and pull out the smelling salts and just retreat to a fantasy about what the United States is in the world stage in a way that not only is historically illiterate and politically foolish, it's actually quite offensive to human beings across the planet. And the one, correct answer, and I think maybe Alex Perrine put it, which was like, yes, it is funny that Trump sort of sounds like Noam Chomsky, but Noam Chomsky's point is that that's a bad thing. Not a, hey, get off of my case. We kill innocent people too, whatever. So the point is to, look, if Trump is a launching off point for a whole set of conversations about how we interfere in other elections, about how Russia's interfering across the globe, how China's interfering across the globe, how political consultants are used, the nexus. I mean, Huawei is going to be another major thing here. And one of the charges against Huawei is that they are working in concert with the People's Liberation Army to project Chinese foreign and defense policy. If you don't think that the NSA and other aspects of the national security establishment have some collaborative relations with Google and Apple at certain points, I would say that you're being, off the charts naive. So, it's not to either indulge and go down to the muck level of Trump, which is what even some people I think have been irony poisoned have done, who aren't even on the right. But then we can't West Wing it, because a lot of these things he says in his own stupid, disgusting way are true. And so we have to have like the hard work of actually figuring out, how to actually deal with these problems, including, electronic and campaign interference and so forth, because we do it. Everybody does it to the extent they have the capacity to do it. And it's only going to get more of a problem, as we move. I mean, my God, we're worried about social media bots and campaigns. Wait till we are dealing with 5G and smart cities. And, the problems that could arise out of this, in terms of misinformation, could get really deep. I mean, there might need to be, to the extent, international law works, Geneva Accords governing things like surveillance and drones and stuff like that. Those are the terms that we need to start to think in versus, how dare he? We would never do any. What was that?
This is not America.
This is not America. I mean, you could just, the next time somebody, Joe Biden, that's his shtick, but like, and everything is America. Yes, America is, of course, A. Philip Randolph and Martin Luther King Jr. and the accomplishments of FDR and the dissent of Eugene Debs and the activism of AIM or Fred Hampton. Of course, it's an enormously complex country that has, some amazing traditions and capacities, but it's also like, just on its face, this is not America about the Charlottesville rally, when the two material building blocks that allowed this whole thing to flow out were a genocide and the slave economy, is just, again, morally wrong, historically illiterate. Like, what the hell does Joe Biden mean? I mean, literally, what do you mean? Because all of these things are demonstrably America.